Welcome back to another episode of When It Rains. I am the host, Martine H. Powell, and today's episode I've been looking forward to since I had an encounter in the high skies. Welcome, Coach Ken, to my podcast, my virtual table. So
Hey.
last year during my travel, I had the pleasure of sitting next to you, Coach Ken. We were
hmm
flying first class on our way back from business trip. I had my trip and you had yours.
Yes.
And we were just chatting. You were a familiar face to me. And then we talked a lot about relationships, which is your expertise. And that made that flight pretty quick. But I'm super excited that you're here because relationships are complicated and you
hmm
are the expert. And
hmm
so I want to thank you for being here. And for those who don't know you, you're a renowned coach, relationship coach, you're a speaker, you're a transformation expert, you are an author, and you and your beautiful wife Karen also have your very own podcast, The Grand Canyons. So thank you for being here. And I've got some questions for you today, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And listen, I remember back when we were on the plane that day, because normally I don't talk to people, because I'm tired and sleepy.
You
But
were being shady.
but you were so bubbly. I was like, I don't want to talk to her. And
Yeah.
plus, it's kind of like you know how it is. You fly a lot. You know how it is. Some people ain't talking about nothing, but me and you, we our conversation was had so much depth to it
Yeah.
that I was like, the time flew by. So I am so glad that we got acquainted, and thank you for having me on your podcast when it rains. And I hope I can be of service and value to you and your audience.
Yeah, thank you. And for those who don't know, Ken, I started When It Rains. I launched it in February. And my reason behind it was to acknowledge that everybody has storms of life. And if you haven't had a storm, you're lying to yourself. So I wanted to give the opportunity and the platform for people to tell their own stories of challenges, of adversity that they have experienced but have gotten on the other side of it or still working on that, because there's power in living in your truth. So
Mhm.
tonight's truth is about relationships and dating. And this is not my wheelhouse. But I talk to people who call me and say, oh my gosh, I heard your podcast, this was great, but would you consider talking about relationships and why men and women, but particularly why men do the stuff they do? So I thought, I can't do that, but I know somebody who can.
Ye-
So, you
right.
and I talked about this, and I want to talk about assumptions people make in
Okay.
dating, because there are a lot of assumptions that people make, right?
A ton of
Yeah. So I've got some questions to kind of kick us off. And the very first one that I want to ask, and I know this is probably going to open up a whole can of worms, but what are some of the most common assumptions that people make in early dating, Ken, that could lead to a misunderstanding early on?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because um, one of the biggest assumptions is that people should know what I want. Like for instance, let me give you an example. My expertise is communications, and I've helped most every relationship I've ever restored, reconciled. It had to do with poor communication, and so one of the assumptions people make is the person assumes they know what I want. For instance, I have ladies that I coach and says, he didn't open my door. You know what? Well, that's a red flag and I'm going to get rid of him. Well, you made an assumption that he knew to open your door. And so because we make that assumption because the last person I was in the relationship with opened my door. Well,
Uh-huh.
the last relationship he was in, the girl just got in and both of them got in there and just fun. See, so we make the assumption that the other person understands what my need or my expectation is.
Yeah, yeah.
That is one of the biggest assumptions people make, right?
But is it a red flag though on the very first date to even talk about expectations like that?
Yeah, I don't call it a red flag. You know what I call it? I say there is a way to talk about expectations
Yeah.
without expectations. And let me give you an example. You're in my class, all right, called
Uh-huh.
Just Ask. And we're going to talk about how you create conversations around your expectations and core values. For instance, allow me to ask you this. So if me and you in conversation, and one of my core values and expectations is that we co-parent in some way, right?
Uh-huh.
So instead of me saying, well, what's your expectation? What if I said something like this? All right, if I said something to you like this, um, when when you have children, what do you think the pros and cons are of private and public schools? All right.
Mm.
Now
Yeah.
notice what I just did. I created a conversation that we're about to go into. And that conversation is going to take me where I tell my point of view, my
Yeah.
values, the other person gets to tell theirs. And in the conversation, we get to see if we're in alignment without
Mm-hmm.
me saying, well, what's your expectation on this? Because, see, what people do, they don't understand the difference between communication and interrogation.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think we all have a mindset
Hmm.
that we have a certain list of boxes that we've got to check. We
I
got to
know.
check this box and we got to check that box, and he doesn't check that box. And so that's a problem, Ken, when it goes with having expectations, and then we've got this list of things that we want, and if the boxes aren't all checked, then we got to get rid of that person, right? So I think that can be a little problematic.
That no, that is very problematic. Let me explain why though. When we have this list of boxes of things, we only have the list because we think that if I obtain the things on the list, or if the other person has these things that are on my list,
Uh huh.
that I'm going to be happy.
Right.
So we equate the list to happiness. If I get this, then I know I'm gonna be happy. If he make this amount of money, I'm gonna be happy.
Mm-hmm.
If he does this, if he's 6 feet tall, makes six figures, and he got a six pack, I'm gonna be happy.
Yeah.
The problem with that is because that's not how the mind works. That's not how the human mind works. It's not human being. That's not the psychology of human existence. And so, what I tell people is, you're attempting to make an emotional decision based on logic, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not the way people. So, what I always tell people is, you can have the things that you value. Yes, I believe in that.
Yeah.
But what I also say is we're going to talk about our values, but more importantly, I want to talk about how I feel when I'm around the person, how the person makes me feel about me, how the person makes me feel about disagreement, how we interact, how I feel when we even have conflict.
Uh huh.
And so the list becomes this, I call it this nefarious thing that we date and live by. And in the end, anybody who's ever been happy, ask them, did they check every box on the list?
And that, you know what? I already know the answer is going to be absolutely
You know the
not.
answer to it. Most people tell me that I've helped to put in relationships. You know
Right.
what they say? Coach, I never would have dated somebody like him until you prompted me, until you encouraged me. He's nothing like my type or
Mm-hmm.
nothing like I've dated before in the past. But when I decided to open myself up for a new possibility,
Yeah. Yeah.
then my mind was able to accept that possibility. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, I kind of like this. I kind of like that. Because the truth is, when I say dating, dating is not about what we think it is. It's not about feeling good, going out to eat, all of that stuff. Dating is about collecting data. Because the
Yeah.
truth is, you learn more about yourself in dating and in relationships
Mm-hmm.
than you ever will learn about somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let me-
And there, so I got this one question that, if you can elaborate on chemistry and compatibility, because they are in
Okay.
fact different. Because people can have chemistry, oh, the
Mhm.
sparks fly when you see them, but they may
Yeah.
not be compatible, and
Correct.
irk your soul to the
Correct.
core in other areas. So can you talk a little bit about chemistry and compatibility?
So I did a video once. I actually did two videos on chemistry versus compatibility. I always and I liken it to. I often say that chemistry will attract the relationship, but only compatibility will sustain the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so chemistry is based on what we feel at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And chemistry normally relies on the release of hormones. I call it the love cocktail. The release of dopamine, okay, the feel good hormone, oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical, and serotonin, which is the calming agent. And
Yeah.
so when you mix all of those things together, you ever notice how when you see the new person and you feel good, well, all this love cocktail is released in your body. That is the reason why when people see the text, whew, they just get they as my wife say, that liver start quivering. That make your liver quiver. And so what happens is this release happens so frequently
Yeah.
during the early part of the honeymoon stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chemistry, right? The problem with that, it doesn't last. It is fleeting. It may last. They say that this stage lasts about a year to a year and a half at
Yeah.
best, and then you go into what we call the power struggle phase or stage. And this power struggle stage, that is when the chemistry wanes. And so now you got a decision. I'm not operating on that fuel of hormonic, the hormones.
The
So now I got
cocktail
to
is over. The
the,
hangover, right.
we done drunk up the drink. The
That's
drink has
right.
been the drink been drunk, you know. And so now we by this time the way I teach my people is by this time you will know if your compatibility, your core values are in alignment. And
Mm-hmm.
so most couples don't make it through the power struggle stage. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't make it through because their values aren't in line, but aren't aligned with each other. But the compatibility comes when you begin to see the world in a similar way. Doesn't mean you agree on everything. Misnomer. It simply means you have a similar value system. The
Yeah.
things that are important to you, the things that make you tick, make you who you are, Martine. They are in alignment with the other person. Let me give you an example of that. We may not view like my wife is I'm loud, she's more quiet, but we're different in a lot of areas, but that's personality traits.
Mm-hmm.
But we people confuse personality traits with values. Our values are similar. For instance, we have similar values when it comes to finances, how we believe in running our household. But we have the same value system. We have similar value systems when it comes to business or when it comes to our children. Similar value systems. Because if my value system was I'm hanging out stay late at night, and her value system was no, I don't do that. That won't
Not in
last long.
alignment. Right.
It's not in
Right.
alignment. And
Right.
so that's the difference. It's always great to have both, but let me say this. Chemistry can come and go.
Mm-hmm.
It's a moving target. Come and go. Compatibility normally does not.
Exactly.
That's why you could be attracted to somebody, you'd be like, that wasn't my type at first. But what happens is just like attraction is a moving target. There are things you can get attracted to a person about, and you'd be like, no, I never thought I would be attracted to him.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened once you realize you were in alignment, all of a sudden attraction, the things you be like, girl, he might not be that attracted to you, but I love him.
Yeah.
You ever seen somebody with somebody you like,
Ooh,
golly.
what he
I,
must be.
I,
Yeah. Yeah. He. Uh huh.
but she loves him.
Right.
She is vice
Because he is
versa too.
good to her.
He's good to her.
Right.
And he may not be aesthetically pleasing to someone else, but to her, it's
Mhm.
and you've seen that in both ways, men and women.
Yeah,
You've seen it. So
yeah,
that's how that works. That's why that works.
yeah. Do you think sometimes, though, talking about stereotypes and assumptions that, and you mentioned it early on about the young lady who wanted the man to open up the car door and he didn't. So let's talk a little bit about stereotypes and assumptions in dating because I think there are a lot of stereotypes. And I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm probably going to tick some people off, or they're probably going to go,
Yeah, I
"What?"
love
when
it.
I say
I
this.
love
But you already know how I feel about it, Ken. You know,
it. Give me the stereotypes you think.
I I am the probably one woman out of I don't know 3 that says I don't think that men should have to pay for everything.
Okay.
And I know that if you're dating and the man takes you out, you just sit there and you wait on him to take out his wallet. But okay, but not every time. If
Hmm.
this relationship goes on and to become something beyond the physical attraction and you're going somewhere with this person, I feel like at some point you shouldn't just expect him to spend every dime on you. But I'm just going to say that. So, what are your thoughts about stereotypes and dating?
I had a video that I did that I think it might be close to 2 million views now. And in the video, it was on our podcast, I said that if a man takes a woman out and he pays one time, two times, three times, and she does not offer by the third time, not I said she didn't have to pay, but if she does not offer by the third time, she's using you.
Mhm.
And I said, here's why. I said, because a lot of women and men, but we're talking about women right now, feel entitled. Why should a man, if he's always paying, what you're really asking is, why should he pay for your time? Why do I have to pay for your time when we are both out exploring each other?
Yeah,
If you don't offer to lead a tip. If you don't offer to do something, then I know that you're not about partnership. And the truth is, people got triggered when I said that they got a man should. I was taught. Now watch this. Assumption. I was taught that a man should always have to pay. Now get this. I said, well, who were you taught by? My daddy or his dad? I said, well, your father and mother was a traditional relationship. He was a traditional man. Mom probably didn't work. And I said they had a traditional relationship. The problem is you want a traditional man, but you don't want to be a traditional woman.
ah, yes,
So think about it. You
right.
want to be able to do your thing, go make your money. You want to be out, have your career. You don't want to be traditional, but you want him to be traditional.
I agree. I totally agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that right there in this modern world, that if both agree to that, then fine. That is
yeah,
why I always say you have to do what works for your relationship.
yeah. And to add to that, Ken, someone told me a long time ago, so relationships are not 50-50.
Right.
Relationships are 100-100. You
Hmm.
bring your gifts and talents to the table, and your partner does the same.
Right.
And I think it's important to show that you are willing to be, as you said already, a partner. If it's my idea to go to dinner and a movie, I'm going to be prepared to pay for dinner and a movie because it was my idea. I don't want to make an assumption that my partner has it to spare.
Well, how come we can't see now? So let me dig in for a minute. The problem with this scenario is you're thinking something, he's thinking something, or
Mhm.
she's thinking something, but nobody wants to communicate.
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about it. Because on some level, if we talk about that, then oh no. And so what we do is we make assumptions in our head. Well, he gonna pay. He the man. And so we don't know how to broach the conversation.
Yeah.
So because we don't know how to broach the conversation, what we do, we make assumptions. We create and then if the man doesn't pay or doesn't pull out his wallet, she get mad and it's the fifth date. But what I'm saying, it doesn't matter. He could pay them all. But let's communicate through that.
Communicate.
What is your value system? But
Yeah.
most people, remember what I told you. Most people don't know how to communicate. So what they would rather do, the number one reason relationships fail, number one, is because of uncommunicated expectation and needs. A person has a need, an expectation, they don't communicate it. And what they do is, and now they make a judgment on the other person because they never communicated what they wanted, what they needed, or what they desired.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're right about that. So I was going to ask you, why do you think that people often just assume that the other needs to understand how they feel or what's going on? But you've already cleared that up. It's the failure to communicate.
Yeah, but
Someone has to initiate
right.
the communication.
The
But the other
question,
person has to be willing to, Ken.
no, everybody, both of them have to be one. Here's the
Yeah.
thing, but you asked two different questions. I told you why. I mean, I told you what happens as a result of it. But you just asked another question. Why is it that we don't do it though? Why don't we communicate?
Okay. Why not?
Yeah. Why don't?
Or don't we?
So now I'm gonna ask you I'm gonna ask you that question because I'll be glad to answer. But I'm gonna ask you the question: have there ever been times when you wanted to communicate something, but you didn't? You
Mhm.
didn't communicate it. You wanted to say it, but you didn't communicate it. And why? Why didn't you communicate it?
It depends on the situation for me, but if I have to really think about it, I got to check myself first
Okay.
because I can be a little firm and stern in how I deliver my message. So I want to think about who I am communicating to and how they're going to receive it. I don't want the person that I am wanting to communicate to or with to receive it in a way that is going to be combative. I want it to be a conversation, but I got to make sure that I'm coming from a place of calm before I deliver that storm. So I
So,
don't know why
so
other people do it, but that's what I do.
you said exactly what I tell people why people are poor communicators. I say
Okay.
98% of people are poor communicators for one or two reasons. And I asked the question. I said, here's the litmus test. The litmus test is, have you ever wanted to communicate something with somebody, but you didn't? And you didn't either communicate it for number one, because you didn't know how to say it,
Hmm.
or number two, you didn't communicate it because you didn't know how they were going to respond if you did say it.
Right.
Either way, you didn't know either how to say it or how they will respond. So I tell people, then that means that you're a poor communicator. Now, and I use that as an example because because either you didn't know how to deliver it, or or you were worried about how they would respond and you still didn't deliver it.
Yeah.
And so what my thoughts are this, is that's why I created a pocket communication coach for what you just said.
Yeah.
Because there are things, sensitive issues in relationships, things that we don't say, that go unsaid. And because we don't know how to say it, because we're so worried about what they were going to do, because we don't know how to communicate it in a way that's not aggressive, not combative, and they won't perceive it incorrectly and not in the spirit than what you were saying. So we don't know how to say it. So best thing for us to do to answer your whole question is it's the road of least resistance.
Uh-huh. Okay. So what are your thoughts about questions in a relationship where one person may ask a ton of questions and the
Mhm.
other person is not as inclined to answer those questions satisfactorily, I would say, to the person who's asking. So, is there a danger in being in a relationship with a person who doesn't want to answer questions, Ken?
There's a danger of being in a relationship with a person who always wants to ask questions, but only looking for the answer and not looking for dialogue. And there's a danger for being in a relationship with somebody who never even wants to approach the answer to the question. So there's a danger both ways.
Oh, wow. Wow.
There's a danger both ways because some people will just ask question after question because they're looking for answers to either check boxes, to either confirm what they believe, or scratch off what they believe, to
Yeah.
or disprove what they thought. And so
Yeah.
they're not asking the question for conversation. They're not asking the question for deeper conversation. They're asking the question simply for an answer to either check a box or destroy the box. And
Mm-hmm.
so that doesn't lead to conversation. And so you got the other person who does not, who always wants to either avoid it, he either avoid the answer, or they don't know how to answer, or they don't want to do, or they don't want to go into a deeper conversation. And there is a way to approach both of them. There's a way
Never
to
thought
approach
of
them.
that. Never thought that the person who's asking the question may not want to know or consider it a danger to know what might be said. And they may not be prepared for it. They may not be prepared for the answer. It may not have ever even thought it through that I may ask a question and get a response of something that I'm not prepared to hear.
Right. Yeah, and ask why they ask it. It's okay to ask questions, but if you but the way many people ask questions, it's almost like it's an form of interrogation because they're trying to get to an answer, an answer that they can use. Oh, you want to have kids? I can check that off. All right,
Uh-huh.
all right. So you got any money saved? I can check that off.
Yeah.
You have filed bankruptcy before. What they're looking for, they're not looking for deeper conversation. What they're not looking to get to know the person. They're looking to check out something based on a preconceived notion that they have about a relationship.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So I have two more like pressing questions that people have asked
press
me to
get it
kind of
to.
pass along to you, okay?
Okay.
So one is, where would you suggest people who are interested in dating meet?
Okay. First off, good question. Good question. Good question. Number one, let me say this. What I'm gonna say, a lot of people ain't gonna like. You know, you gotta first of all, if you want to date, number one, you got to do the things that people do who are willing to date. Let me give you an example. You're looking for something. If you're looking for a job, if you want a job, what do? You go look for the job.
Yeah.
You fill out the applications. You go to Indeed. You go to Monster if it still exists, and you do all that to find your job. How come somebody want to date, but they don't ever put themselves out there? They don't ever go out to concerts. Somebody invite you to a kickback at a kickout. They don't want to go, but I don't want to. And then somebody says, "Hey, you know what? If you go into the grocery store, I want you to go to the store, look good, look good. If you go to the gym, look, you make yourself findable. Where are the people online? Go get online, but get the knowledge of how to do it." And so what I tell people is make yourself findable. If somebody invites you, summer coming up, right? And somebody got to get go because you don't know. You don't ever know. Put
Right.
yourself in there. If a girl want to hook you up with somebody, to go. Yes. It's just a date. It's just we don't know. And what people do is it's kind of like the person who wants the job, want to work, but they'll never go apply for the job. Well, you can for people, you meet people everywhere, church, concerts, grocery stores, gym, everywhere. But you work from home and stay up in your house all day. You don't go to the park because you don't know.
And you can't meet someone, is what you're saying, if you don't put yourself in spaces
To
to
meet
meet
somebody.
and
Yeah,
interact with other people.
absolutely.
Okay, so shout out and listen out for those who are tuning in to both of us. You cannot find someone
You
if
got to
you
make
are
yourself
not going
findable.
anywhere.
You're not going to be findable.
You're not going to be fine.
Here's the thing, though. But this goes back to a deeper belief. A deeper belief. Many people believe that why do it? Because I ain't gonna find nobody.
Yeah.
There is nobody out there for me, so why do it? And so what they do is they create this narrative in their head, and when they create the narrative, this story that they tell themselves, and this story it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? And so what I'm saying, you will have, and I'm a believer, you will have what you say you will have. You will have what you say you will have. Okay, if this pops off, and I believe it will, I'm going to use this as a case study. One of my clients is going to get married. And what we did, we put it on the calendar, we manifested it, and I'm going to document everything.
Uh-huh.
People ain't got to believe me, believe her. We're going
Okay.
to tell the whole story. And,
Oh
and, and,
wow.
and she and she put on her calendar September 20th. And this was at the beginning of the year. She said, Coach, I told, you told me what to do. So I just did it. And I said, forget it. And there are a sequence of events that have happened that I'm like, God, you got it. You got a sense of humor. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, let's see. And
Oh wow.
once it happens, once it happens, I'm gonna have a retreat.
Because it is gonna happen.
I'm gonna have I'm gonna have a 5-day retreat, and it's gonna cost probably $10,000 or more. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show people how to get anything they want in their life, anything, whatever it is, whatever it
Manifest it.
is,
Yes. Gotta
whatever
manifest.
it is. And I gotta have a case study because I'm a case study. I got other case study. I got other people who done it, but they didn't do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
This way, we were so deliberate about everything.
Well,
And
okay. So here's another case study for you because this is the final question from some of my friends who have called me and asked
where
questions.
your friends at? Well, tell you, hey friends.
Friends, okay. What's up with the later daters, as Michelle Obama has said before, Ken? What is the deal with the older men and women, but I think primarily men, who say they want to date, say they want something serious, and they got more games than Hasbro. So what's up with that, Ken?
Okay, so let's not be disingenuous. Let's just say that people, because women got a lot of games too. They just play them differently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a lot of men, when they're young and full of testosterone, they want to just go out and bang. And now that that thing ain't working like it used to, right? And you wonder why, fool, what you still got game for? Because you ain't. But people date for a multitude of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
People date for a number of reasons. They date because they want to see if they still have it. They
Yeah.
want to want companionship. They do it for a number of reasons. Now there's a lot of game playing out there. Here's what I would say more than anything else. What I would say is what we need to do is figure out how to weed out the ones who play games. Let me show you how to vet them, because there are some men out there who are just as afraid of women picking the wrong person.
Uh-huh.
They're
Uh-huh.
picking the wrong person, and because they're afraid of picking the wrong person, they are apprehensive, just like women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
There
that's
should be like
wrong.
some sunglasses or something that women can wear and just see right through the man like an X-ray and be like, no good. What you think, Ken? What you think?
What the glasses do though? I mean, what the glasses go look?
The
What they go?
glasses will
But I'm saying,
illuminate.
what they gonna show you?
You can see right through them, Ken. It'll be like, doop, 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 doop. You remember the bionic woman and
Yeah,
man? You remember
yeah,
that?
yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
Just
That
a thought. Just a
that,
thought.
but no, no. But I think more importantly, what all people, women and men, I think what they need to do is learn. There is a process for everything. How to vet people. A process
Yeah.
to know if I should cut this off early. There is a process to know if I should to hang in here and look for green flags, not just
Mhm.
red flags.
Yeah.
Reasons to stay, reasons
Yeah.
to hang in there. And let me say this as we here, since we here. You know what the biggest problem is with men and women? I'm gonna start with men.
Okay.
Number one, men are non-committal about what they want to do,
Hmm.
whether it's build a relationship, whatever it is. They're non-committal. And so they leave women in limbo. Okay. And oftentimes they don't know, they may not know until they know, but they don't ever say that. So they don't communicate well either. So that's
Yeah.
the number one. They don't communicate well.
Okay.
The number one problem with women is the way they communicate. This masculine energy, men nowadays, they avoid it like the plague. There is a way to tell a man what you expect without using masculine energy. But because women have been so successful and this masculine energy has worked in the workplace,
Hmm.
they just transfer it over to every other part of their life, to their
And
relationships.
I also have some thoughts about masculine energy. You want to hear my thoughts about that?
I'd love to hear it.
So, I've been hearing that term quite a bit,
Hmm.
about masculine energy or women who've said, oh, the man said I had masculine energy. And I'm like, what? You were told that? But here are my thoughts about masculine energy. That like is a role. We go back to these whole defining of role. Like what makes the energy masculine? Is it a woman who speaks with confidence to say what she wants? Is it a woman who changes a tire on her car? Like, what is masculine energy? And here's my thought about that, Ken. If you are a single woman
Hmm.
and you don't have a man to rely on,
Hmm.
then you gotta channel masculine energy.
I agree.
And men shouldn't be offended by it because the woman is taking care and standing on business.
Okay.
I don't think they
That,
should be offended by
they
that.
should be offended about it. But see, here's the next, but that's an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excuse to stay in the energy. So what
Yeah.
happens is a man shouldn't be offended by it because a woman many times has to adopt. Because this is the part I want anybody listening. Men and women both have masculine and feminine energy. So
Yeah.
allow me to explain what they are. I got a quick, easy explain. Masculine energy is the energy of doing, deadlines, ambition, going to get it. I mean, that person who is driven. I mean, that's the energy of doing.
Yeah.
Women do, men do. Feminine energy is the energy of being, being caring, being nurturing, being a certain way. Men,
Mm-hmm.
I have a very nurturing, caring spirit too. That's why when people come to me a lot of times can't pay, I'm like, I got you. Okay, I have that part of me too. The difference is when I'm with my wife, I know how to balance the energy. It's the balancing of it. I know sometimes I got to turn off this go getter driven masculine man. I got to be more caring. I got to go with the flow. I got to be more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
That's feminine energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what I've learned is how to master the balance. And a lot of women don't know how to master the balance.
Ah. Okay.
No, you don't have to avoid it. Yes, it's helped you. You got to get things done.
Yeah.
But when you dealing with another masculine, you got to understand how to balance
I'm gonna have balance, Ken.
it.
I'm a little balanced, Ken. But you know what? I will say, in closing this part of the conversation up, I have balance, but I am just very no nonsense. That I just feel like once I put it out there and I've asked someone to do something and it doesn't get done, then I take care of it.
Okay,
So don't be
no problem. Okay,
offended because I'm taking care of it.
okay, okay. Now, but it's the way you communicate
Right.
that makes it masculine. It is not. It is not that you did it. It is the way you communicated that you did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think the first time it is clearly articulating what I need, what I'm asking for. Could be wrong, but the second time it's a nonverbal communication. I'm just going to do it because I've already communicated the first time what I wanted. And I know I'm a work in progress, but like I said, Balance, Ken.
Oh, I
Okay,
get it. I get
so
it. I get
listen,
it.
we could go on and on, but I want you to tell the listeners about a couple of things.
Hmm.
Your Just Ask masterclass,
Hmm.
which is phenomenal, by the way, and how they can join, and also your Pocket Communication
Coach.
Coach app. Will you please share that information for the listeners?
Well, the first thing is I created it's called Just Ask, how the right questions will reveal the right partner. And I have a best-selling ebook that I've sold thousands, teaching people this process of number one, how do you vet people? How do you get deeper in conversation? And you get deeper in conversations by asking questions. But people don't understand why you ask questions and they don't understand how because they've never been trained to communicate that way.
Yeah.
And so that class is for people who either are dating or people who are in a relationship, but they want to go deeper. They want to create a deeper connection. So it's good. So if you're interested in joining, come to either one of my platforms. Coach Ken Canion at Gmail. I mean, not at Gmail, on all my Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and go and click on my bio, Facebook,
Yeah.
or YouTube. Click on my bio, and you'll see under my link tree where it says the Just Ask class. It's 8 weeks. I always tell people it's only $10 a week. It's only $10 a week. But every single week, you're going to learn something you did not know.
Yeah.
Every week. I
Yeah.
promise you that.
Yeah.
And so that class I did that I'm promoting. You get the replays as well if you weren't there the first week and every week, but you get them. But it's going to literally change how people communicate in relationships and to create deeper bonds. Second thing is the pocket communication coach. Y'all notice I keep talking about communication. I created the Pocket Communication Coach for people who don't know how to communicate well in the workplace and in relationships, dating. And what it basically is, it is a software that, let's say you want to say something to you want to ask a question, you don't know how to say it, you want to tell them, that they're not sexually satisfying you, or you want to tell them that you want to know where the relationship is going, or you don't like their mother, whatever. But it shows you when you type that in, it actually tells you how to say it, and then it tells you why you say it that way.
Yeah.
It breaks down why you say it that way. So that's the pocket communication coach. And I created it because people would ask me, how should I respond, coach? How should I say it? Well, the pocket communication coach will tell you. Yep.
Okay.
Go,
Okay.
go to go to pocketcommunicationcoach.com, download it. It will literally change your life. That's
I
it.
think anybody who is listening and joins any of your platforms, takes any of your master classes, will have a life changing experience for
Oh, thank you.
sure. Because one thing about you is you just tell it like it is. You tell it like it is. So for those
Yeah.
who are listening, if you don't want to hear it and receive it in the way that Ken Kane is going to give it to you, don't join. But I think
Yeah.
everybody's pretty tough.
Yeah,
I
but
think,
I don't. But the one thing I don't do, I'm gonna give it to you straight. But I'm also gonna encourage people in the process to be better.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So I got two sides. I balance it. I balance that with you can do it. Yeah.
That's right. We're in alignment. We're
I
balanced.
love it. I
Okay.
love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Well, Ken, so my last question, and early on I told you about how and why I started and launched When It Rains. I
Hmm.
always ask my guests in closing, what is the one lesson you wish that everybody knew when it comes to overcoming life storms? One lesson.
They're all necessary.
Oh, yeah.
They're all necessary because I'm a believer, and I believe God has given us storms not because He wants to see us in pain. But he's given us storms to help us become who we were destined to become.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, I would never be Coach Ken had I not went through a storm. Me and my wife almost going through divorce court. But that storm has helped me become someone who's helped thousands. And
Yeah.
so every storm is necessary.
I love that. And my storm is what said, okay, you've gotten through the storm,
Yeah.
and the whisper of God says it doesn't have to pour when it rains, and here
Yeah.
we are.
And
So
look what we're doing because of yours. Look what we're doing.
yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Coach Ken Canyon. Thank you for everybody who's tuning in. Don't forget to go visit Coach Ken Canyon on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube for the Grand Canyons podcast. What night is your podcast?
Thursday nights, it's live. Thursday nights, we do the podcast. And you can also go to CoachKenCanyon.com. Oh, and also check out my TV show. I'm a co star on hit TV show on MTV called Unfaithful Caught in the Act. And yeah, you can check
Art
me
in
out.
the act. That's right.
It was
That's
on
right.
last night, and the new season started last night. And look, and if you want some, you want to really know, you want to come see me on 9 o'clock MTV Tuesday night.
MTV. I'm just going to ask you on the network. MTV. Check out Coach Ken Canyon. Thank you so much, my friend. And thanks to everybody for tuning in.
Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. I love it.
I will. Hold tight. Thanks everybody for tuning in to When It Rains.